NFT. Yeah. All right. Well, I am Matty Bovard, also known as Dankphart, the pirate poet. P-H-A-R-T, pretty hot and reasonably talented. I've been an artist been a dedicated poet for 2006. So like 16, 17 years that I've been dedicated writing, and have been for the past 12 years working on building out my own personal art brand and developing also a media company that supports artists and independent creative culture, and that's currently being in process of being launched as an internet radio station up in Boulder. And I've been in Boulder for the past 10 years, really with just the focus on how to build community and use that to leverage it to build a sustainable art brand for myself so that I can support my personal art and getting it out to the world along with the team so that I can do the art and the creative aspects and someone that loves organizing events and taking notes and doing all of that stuff, that they can come in and do that. And so I've been kind of looking at all this infrastructure and entrepreneurship around business and art for a long time. And then it was New Year's 2020 at a small gathering at the basement of the Riverside. A friend of mine who's involved with crypto, she's like, "Hey, have you heard about this NFT thing?" And I'm like, "No." And then like an hour or so later, another friend of mine was like, "Oh, NFTs," and he explained to me what they are. And so an NFT, in its most simple understanding, is it's a smart contract and a smart contract is just a digital version of a physical contract, a deed. Any contract you make with anybody, that's a physical contract. It's the same thing as a smart contract. A smart contract is just embedded on a blockchain, and a blockchain is the backbone of all what is considered Web3 technology. And in its most, again, simple understanding of a blockchain is a ledger, and it just tracks all the transactions, and it's in digital format, and it's immutable, which means it can't be changed. And so anytime that transaction happens, it's there on the blockchain. Anybody in the world with an internet access can go look at it, and then there is that transaction, and it has basically what wallet it went to and where it came from. And so there's no like codifying information around who that individual is, which is why you can have transactions that the government doesn't know what's going on. But that's just the technology itself. And so yeah, an NFT is a smart contract that you can house the address of a piece of digital content, and it doesn't even have to be a piece of digital content. In fact, you could do a deed. You could have the deed for this piece of land, has all the information on it, and then you make a smart contract around it, and whoever owns that smart contract would be the owner of said piece of property. So it's basically taking ownership to the next level from the physical world into the digital world. And that's what Web3 essentially is the ability to own digital content. Before, if you make a piece of digital content and it goes like viral across the internet, before Web3 and NFTs, there was no way to be like, "Oh, I own that and I'm gonna make my money on it." So you just make it cool, the world sees it, and you'll be able to be successfully transition it to a successful brand where you get to be an artist and do your thing. But that was really difficult. And so with NFTs and Web3 and the blockchain, now you can have all of the infrastructure that you would need to create a physical business. It can be done with much lower overhead on the blockchain, and you can set it up however you want. And you can also set up a DAO, which is short for decentralized autonomous organization. And basically, you create a mission around whatever business, whatever it is you want to be doing, and then you write out the mission and all of the pieces for it. And from there, you create a crypto token that is associated with it, and then people buy that crypto token, and by buying in that crypto token, you can earn governance rights. And so there is no hierarchical leadership. Everybody gets to have a vote in it and decide kind of what's going on for the project. And so I'm going to be building one of those for my art brand as well, so that it becomes the business infrastructure to support what the brand is doing in the world, and also the finances and the resources to support putting projects into the world and the fans get to be in on the journey with you, and you get to be building it collectively, and they get to have say in what is being done with the brand. And so it becomes a really community effort, and everybody gets to thrive within it. And so so traditionally, when you're an artist, even if you've been practicing for a long time, what it takes to really get your brand off the ground and have it be a really thriving business. And it's not, for me, it's not about making a bunch of money and being a rich artist. Between rich and wealthy, is a rich person is someone that takes in a lot of money, but they don't invest it back into the world for that money to make more money, and so it's not really stable. A wealthy person is someone that can take in a lot of money but also understands how to put it back into the system to grow money. But this is not what I'm talking about, isn't really geared towards any of that. It creates the financial inflow to be a working artist, not to be an icon, like trying to make yourself look like you're living the life of an artist. That generally puts you into debt. If you start to look at the system of the industry and what they, you get let's say you're an artist, an up and coming artist, and you get a $2 million advance. But that $2 million is you have to be paying your bills and all of your life and everything that's going into it until that record makes money or until it's even produced. But you're also paying for the entire team and staff to produce that album. That money, that $200 million advance, it's not to you, it's to the entire collective that's going to take all of that and to produce that and create the record. That is also, and then they're also wanting you to go play the image, so that before you even have money, they're going to go ask you to go get diamonds, go have fancy cars, go stay in the most expensive hotels, so that you're playing the role of the artist and everybody sees you playing that role as an artist, but they don't educate you as the artist and financial responsibility, and that you're going to be having to pay all this back. So all of a sudden you feel like you're living the high life, but you're just putting yourself into debt slowly and assuredly. And that's how they keep you locked in the contract, and why you are then don't have the freedom to explore and find what you want to be doing. And so that it's a way for the industry to take passionate individuals and keep them contractually obligated to the industry and indentured to the industry. And so now with NFTs, all of that contractual stuff and everything that that would traditionally require a lot of financial investment because of just brick and mortar and all of these different little bits and pieces, you can do them with almost no overhead. And then with the internet, with social media and various different things, you can build your audience on your own terms. And so you build your audience, and now when you incorporate NFTs and various different things and a DAO or various different principles, and you have all that IP that you didn't sell, you can then go to your community and you raise and you do a crowdfunding campaign and all of those, and then you raise startup capital for your brand, whatever it takes. I would probably recommend 6 figures realistically, because you're not just paying yourself, and you also have to pay yourself until that product starts getting sold. And so you want to be able to, the goal of this is to be so that you have the ability to be a full-time working artist, and you're not having to do other random jobs to support yourself. And maybe as you generally, people, especially in this community, as we're artists, we're starting to thrive, and all of a sudden we're not having to do all these extra jobs. It means that I can probably help you move or help you with whatever, and we have more energy to give to our community because we're not having to have all of our time and energy sucked into having to do all of these extra jobs to support our livelihood as we're building towards a career as an artist. And that's the reason why people go to a publisher or a record label or whatever, because of the amount of energy that it takes to start up a brand, and also all of the, for a team, because it's really hard for an individual artist, even in our modern times where you have various social media platforms. Even if a lot of these artists that have gone viral in various different mediums on different platforms still don't translate it to a paying career as an artist, to translate a career of being a quote-unquote influencer or various different capacities on the internet. It doesn't translate most of the time towards actually a paid career. A lot of times people will just be making images and various different things on social media to make it look like they're living the lifestyle, very much the same way that the artist gets a large advance from whatever organization. They are living a life, they're doing having images that looks like they're living a lifestyle of wealth, but they are not actually generating wealth, and they're just doing it as an image to sell something that isn't even the art. And it's a way for, again, the system to indenture the artist to become something that they're going to be making money for the industry for long times. And the artist themselves probably is making, usually as like a very small percentage of the fraction of their IP. So when an album sells or various different things like that, it is the executives that are not actually even in the art sector at all. All they're looking at is numbers. And that's also why a lot of modern pop music and various different industries are why the music and stuff is not very adventurous, and also the movie industry as well, because they're looking at a lot of, like, back in the day when the Beatles and a lot of this early stuff was happening, there was more adventurous. They weren't just looking at spreadsheets and stuff. And now 50, 60 years later, when they are, and they've had various different boy bands where it's like, all right, there's just 4 of you, you know how to sing. All right, cool. We'll put you here. You don't know each other. There's no actual community energy or anything. And they're just like, all right, we'll teach you how to do this. And like the K-pop, like over in Korea, that stuff is like that on like steroids, where it's like, all right, now you're just teenagers come in, and now you're gonna like do like a whole month long of just like military style boot camp, and whoever can survive that gets to go off and be the pop star. I kind of forgot where I was going with all of that. But basically what this is, creating an opportunity for the independent artists to generate all that they need for themselves within their community, then living in a world where they also have their ability to use their voice authentically, and the production team aren't there to sell an image. They're there to support what wants to be coming through the artist. And so what I was saying with the industry, why you keep seeing Marvel and all of these the same kind of music over and over and over again, is because they're looking at spreadsheets. They're not actually listening to the music. They're going, well, like, what does this cross across this many sectors for this many fans, so then we're going to invest this much. And they're just purely looking at it from a numbers business standpoint and not from a creative standpoint. And every once in a
you can finish your thought.
Yeah, every once in a while you'll see like something comes out that is a little bit cutting edge, but for the most part, when you're looking at it, it's because they're not playing to win. They're playing they're playing it safe so that they can make their return as easy as possible without having to overthink and have to talk to the board that might, like, oh my god, we lost some money, so then the board's going to be all angry. And so it's become just very much structured in that, which limits the ability for new voices and new style and creativity to come out.
My question was, so you spoke about the loans that are given to the artists so they can live the life and
they're not. The loans aren't to live. The loans aren't to live the life. A lot of times, what the industry does, the industry tells you to live the life. And so but the money is they call it an advance, but it's basically startup capital. But you have to think about that. That's going to go towards the producer of the album, the artist of the album, and so like all of that plus yourself.
So my question,
you're having to pay for that from your advance.
Yeah, exactly. Everything comes from.
Question that I'm trying to get to is,
Sorry.
how does an NFT keep you from going into debt to these industries, where does that tie into
You never
helping
gonna
you?
sign or go to an industry ever.
Yeah, you don't go to the industry.
Never go to
Okay.
the industry.
Yeah, so you just basically,
So you self-promote.
yes, and so that's exactly where the crowd, what
You're
I was
making your
saying.
own label.
Yeah, well, exactly. Your own label or your own brand or whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
So the NFTs they give with, and so you all that because for that advance, what you do is you give the record label or the publishing house or whatever, or if you're a painter, the way that you generally will have a big breakout is you find a gallery, and you have a gallery that is like the gallery's like plugged in, they're really cool, they know everybody, and you have a gallery showing that like all the big names show up, and a couple big and everybody buys all of them, or a couple big names buy one, and then all of a sudden you're the it brand. But so what this is, you raise that capital through your community, and for that IP that you didn't sell, that you are making very small, minuscule amounts from the industry. If you're an up and coming artist, you can embed it into your NFTs. And so the NFT contract is literally anything you can imagine. If an NFT contract, if it doesn't have any specifics about licensing and all of that stuff, all that you get is the image, and you do own that image, but you don't have IP rights for it. But you can incorporate any IP rights you want, any kind of business asset you could imagine into an NFT. Yeah, and so Ethereum has been the main one that all the media is all about, but the Ethereum currently has really large gas fees, which is the transaction fees. And those can be like hundreds of dollars. And so with hundreds of dollars, it makes it so that you can't do a low cost NFT, which can be difficult for emerging artists. But now there's other platforms, blockchains, Polygon, and then there's like literally like 30 different blockchains that you can use.
Name a couple
I would say Polygon. There's this new one coming up called the Near Protocol. And also Solana is good, and I really like the WAX, WAX. It stands for Worldwide Access Exchange, and I found that WAX gives you the most utility without being a developer, but it's mainly meant for video games, and so there aren't a lot of artists on it, but it gives you the most use for not being a developer. So a lot of these systems, like OpenSea is probably the biggest marketplace that most people have heard of, and it's called lazy minting, and so with that you don't have to have a developer. And so you can just go into there, you could you set up your digital wallet, and then that's a whole nother, I'm not going to go into all of that. Yeah. But you just set up your digital wallet, you can go there, and you can have your piece of digital content, and it can be anything as long as it's under 100 megabytes in the lazy minting. And then you set it up, and then you put in the metadata, which is just like the stuff in the contract, and then you hit mint, and it's made. And with Polygon, it's free, and you can mint as many as you want. So you could mint 1 million of them.
What?
Yeah.
Polygon is free?
Yep. There are no gas fees. Okay. And Wax and Solana as well. The only blockchain that really has major gas issues is Ethereum.
Yeah, that's the main one I knew of.
Yeah, and they're working on changing that this August. They're supposed to be moving to proof of stake versus proof of work, which will make the energy consumption be much less. And so all of a sudden it's becomes very easy to create and low energy transactions. And so all of a sudden it's like the proof of like exchange and anything between peer to peer becomes almost nothing. And so then the exchange isn't, and then the currency, and I wrote a 16-page essay a couple weeks ago about all of this. And as I was writing it, I was talking about currency, because in the world of crypto, the value just radically moves up and down. but so does the US dollar. That moves up and down all the time as well. Currency is not stable. I mean, like, the US dollar is more stable than the other ones, but it's not stable. Currency itself isn't stable. The value that you're exchanging for the currency is stable. If it's a piece of art or an art brand that has community around it, that is engaging, doing things, that is stable value. That will if the people behind that, if they are authentic and true and like honest and integrity, and they're still like, even if the currency drops out, but if the value behind it is still the same, you still give that individual a fair amount of currency in exchange for the value of that, because you value it and you're exchanging it not based upon the currency and the speculation and the value of the currency. You're exchanging it because you respect the value that's being translated. And so even if if like, you know, a pair of Nikes, even if the US dollar right now, it's a perfect example, like right now we're in inflation, but you go to the store, a pair of Nikes is still the same value, is still priced at the same price. It's not dropping in value because the currency is getting fluctuated. The brand itself behind that maintains value. And so that's where it's like understanding beyond all of the blockchain and all of that, the blockchain and NFTs, those are just exchange. The currency is just a value of exchange. The value of what you're holding on to is what is important, and that's where like having it be surrounded around by art and community, and the art maintains value and has a tendency to appreciate. Like just within the past couple, like a month or so, Andy Warhol had a painting go was like 190 million, and it was the highest paid American art piece of art on auction ever, and in the time where inflation's at like 30, 40, like whatever the highest it's ever been, but art is still going at a record price. So the art brand and art value has a tendency to maintain value even when the market itself is not doing very well. And so all that comes down to, so essentially what all of this is about is how you as an individual creator, as an artist, have the ability now to have the tools to create everything that you would want to create your own personal art brand, and then go and develop a community around it. And you can offer the value of your IP to your community. And so then as your projects make money, the token holders can make money as well. And so coming back to how you don't go into debt is you just be mindful about what you're doing. Like most artists, if they were financially educated and they went to an industry player and they got like the 2 million, and they're like, oh, go get a bunch of diamonds, and they're like, no, I'm going to invest in this smart, I'm not going to go into debt, which it could be done. But most of the people that are going to be artists are, you know, like 18, 19, they aren't financially educated. And so they're just like, oh, here's money. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I've got money, without recognizing that all of this money is going to have to be paid back over time, or however it happens. And then the executives know that. And so it's like, you know, they're preying on ignorance so that they become indebted to the industry, and that they can have that person make however many albums for however many years until they are ready, until the industry finds some fresh blood, and then they just kind of keep in that cycle. And so this is about how to go to crowdsource to your community and build that community from the foundation to support yourself as a working artist. And then as your brand becomes more well known and you create more in the world and more people know about you, as like I was talking about with Andy Warhol, your brand appreciates. Anytime an artist goes from emerging to more well known, their art always appreciates. And so as an NFT, even if you didn't give IP to any of your fans, if they invested in you as an emerging artist, and then your career grows and you've been doing art for however long, they can sell it on a secondary market, and then and also there's royalties in it. So then your art from the beginning is supporting you for your entire career, for the life of you, and it's also supporting your fans. And so it creates a whole collective community of where we are supporting each other and not focusing on the currency, focusing on the value of what you're creating within your community and how that art creates and generates value in the world. And if the art is creating and generating value in the world, it will translate to an increase in value in currency.
So what is the value of Andy Warhol's art?
Well, in which term, which kind of value? Do you mean monetary value, social value, cultural value? There's so many different values.
Right. I mean more social cultural. Obviously, it's
Yeah.
a record amount. Some people valued it financially, but where is that financial value being derived from? How do we recognize and support actual cultural and social value? Like you're talking about community building.
Yep. Well, and that actually, Andy Warhol is a perfect example for that, because I think what Andy Warhol was he was actually like in this world before this was even possible. How Andy got his start was he was a painter in Pittsburgh, artist in Pittsburgh, doing his thing, and then he found out that there was like some dude in New York or somewhere buying up all kinds of art, just like throwing money at art. And Andy's like, oh, money, art, cool. Called him up, and he's like, I hear you got money for art. And the guy's like, yeah. And the guy's like, when Andy's just like, yeah, what do you want? I'll take your money. And that's how he got the factory in New York. And so with Andy in particular, he was building community and so he wasn't just create himself as an artist. He was creating and generating other artists around him and creating support space that allowed creativity to thrive. And it wasn't always in the most healthy ways. But that was so Andy himself was making a scene. So by showing up and getting artists and having it there and making the it factor, it made all the eyeballs and attention come on it, and that's what generates cultural value is recognition of it. And whether it is good art or not, that really doesn't have anything to do with this at this point. It has to do with the impact that, well, there's whole people that just make whole careers out of being critics because that's how they make their money. But
I need to look into that.
yeah,
No, you don't.
yeah. But so Andy's the effect that it has on society and how many people are seeing it and the emotional experience of it and how it taps into what's going on in the cultural narrative.
But his art was shit. What's the emotional impact of it? It's a can of soup. That's a different topic.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say that, I mean, the thing is, it was the emotional impact is with that, it's like, the can of soup is looking at modern objects. And so, like, that's what Andy was doing. He was looking at what was going on. It was commentary on the modern world. And was it good commentary? You know, that's up to the viewer's opinion. But as to why Andy became so famous was because he was smart in marketing and business, and he just made a scene.
CIA agent or being fronted.
It's very possible. A lot of these, yeah, exactly. It was, yeah, it's very.
Cody, you're referring to the arts industry shenanigans where wealth needs to be moved off the books from an account somewhere and into an asset that only I can evaluate.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So you paint a brush stroke on a canvas, I'll give you $3 million for it. That's a way to hide wealth.
Yep.
There's that, but there's also the cultural social influence.
Yeah.
The CIA specializes in.
Yeah, exactly. And but the one artist that was for sure Jackson Pollock. Like it is like came out that for sure the person who was funding him was a CIA operative, and the reason why they chose Jackson Pollock was because it was so far out that the Russians were like, it would just be like, show the Russians how ignorant they were and make America feel like, look how advanced and how like cutting edge we are, because we have art that's just so far out that doesn't make any like logical sense.
I wonder, who's the CIA fronting right now?
Hopefully me.
Without going too far down the rabbit hole of the financial backing and corruption behind art, I would love to stay on topic
Yeah,
with the
totally.
NFTs as in particular, I'm getting ready to get into an endeavor by funding community, by using NFTs as a backing, as a note for
Perfect.
for investors to hold. And I'm curious what you could speak upon the NFT notes, the IPs, which I believe is the intellectual property
Yep.
of, and how that can help fund a community, and how the NFTs would raise in value as a community grows.
100%. So how that would work, the value is basically what does the community need. So it's basically how you determine the value of the NFT is for within this particular aspect, because it's literally whatever you can dream up. So for something like this, it would be like, all right, how much money do we need, and what are potentially some values that the community could have? Because utility is so much more, is like, because with the NFT you can make token gates, and like, so that basically a website, instead of entering a password, you have to own the NFT in order to get access to it. So you can do all kinds of different things above and beyond. But so then you'd create whatever imagery or whatever things you wanted to do for that would be the main part of the NFT, and then you would figure out how many you want to have. You could have, I'd probably recommend multiple tiers, so ones that have more value and ones that have less value, and the ones that have more value maybe having IP embedded, and some of the lower ones that it's just like, oh, here's a picture, and you just get to access to be a part of the community. So you create whatever you want, just like a traditional crowdfunding campaign. And then how they would can increase in value is the success of the project. The more like I was saying earlier, like, an artist or a project that goes from emerging to like being fully successful, people are going to see that, and then it's going to have, and that increases the value in the sector of currency. Like on the stock market, it's like, it's not the value of something on the stock market isn't actually how much money they're actually processing and making. It's about how much of the sector that they are able to be working. Like, the reason why Amazon is so valuable on the stock market isn't because they're making billions and billions of dollars in actual profit. It's because they have such a large corner on the market. And so with that, so then as the project becomes successful, there's more people know about it, and so then it increases the value of it. And then if you have IP rights and various different things like that, then if the project is a music or an art project, you could have streaming rights into it. So anybody like Spotify or whatever is streaming and you're a token holder, you'll earn money with it. Or if that, you can also sell it on a secondary market because it's appreciated in value. So you could sell it on a secondary market, which is like collectibles. Like if you look at the market of collectibles before digital, I mean, like cups, all of a sudden, like, just like a whole bunch of mugs, like it's like 20 years old, somebody all of a sudden wants this mug, and all of a sudden this mug that was like $275 is now like valued at like $500,000, just because somebody thinks it's collectible. And a lot of, like, for something like this, the project, it's more about what the project does in the world. The more positive impact or people experience the project, the more value it will have. And also you could put into it, whereas beyond IP, you could even like put rights, like where it's like, all right, let's say the company makes this much money. Whenever this much money is made, there's this much paid out to all of the token holders that hold that token. And so it's whatever you can dream up, and you get to build whatever values you want into it. And the money it costs to produce the infrastructure is like, for a DAO, they say it's like, you could be only $500, and within that, that's like the entire infrastructure that you need to support the project. Whereas if you were going to be doing this traditionally, it'd be like, to start a startup for a business and all of that, you've got all the costs you have to pay for, the government, for all of the different things, for your LLC, all these different things that all of a sudden can be all encapsulated in the blockchain NFT technology.
Beautiful. I love that. That's exactly the information I was looking for.
Yeah.
And it definitely makes me feel more solid about the endeavor I'm about to step into as
Yeah.
well, hearing that.
Cool. Yeah, and it's literally, you get to make it up. That's the biggest thing.
My favorite part.
Yeah, exactly. And I would recommend like talking to your community, like talk to the community, be like, hey, like, this is what we're thinking about. What are some things that you would find valuable? into this, that we could incorporate into this, that would make you feel really like wanting to buy in.
And does NFT have to be tied to a piece of art?
Nope. Could be any piece of digital. Like I was saying, you could like.
There's a real estate agency that was using NFTs.
Yep. You can attach. You can. I mean, it would be a picture. Basically, be like, all right, here's like this plot of land. Like, because traditionally, like a deed would probably have like all the information around it, and then probably some pictures or whatever that go along with it. So it can be all that same stuff. There's literally anything you can dream up. And basically, all that it would have to do, you'd have to have a picture or something that recognizes whatever piece of it ties into it, and then it's just housed in the smart contract, and then whoever owns that smart contract
Has access to it.
owns it.
And are we calling those anythings assets?
I would call them assets, but there are people in the blockchain web community, Web3 NFT community that are trying to shy away from using the words assets, so that we don't to try and not have to deal with what the FEC, SEC, and all that stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's basically an NFT is a way to create digital assets.
I'm curious if you know of any other projects besides, like I know of Future Thinkers, who has created NFT trees and are actually planting trees with people's names tied to the trees, and those trees grow in and become like something beautiful, and that raises the value of that NFT. Do you know any other projects that are doing similar
No,
things?
I don't. That is really cool. I recently connected up with a guy in Cyprus, which is just off of Greece, and he's got a project he's getting off the ground called Conscia Link, CONSCIA Link, and it's an app to connect people to, alternative healing and health and wellness. So it's going to be practitioners and people seeking assistance. And they're launching in Cyprus, but they also have an NFT project called New Earthies NFTs. And they're going to be incorporating things like, as the business gets off the ground and it's making money, they're going to give out profit sharing to their community for the business. Yeah. And so literally it's an open format. It's almost like God's like, here's an infinite structure, go play. Now you have to go figure out what you want to do.
Ask, what's creating the value of the NFTs?
The art brand behind it, the community behind it.
What about for other examples? How does someone create this currency
Without heart?
without
Without art? Oh, I mean, you can literally tie it to, like, what would be something that you would want to sell or offer?
Some people have created trading business. I don't know how they started out in the cryptocurrency.
Yeah, like a trade, like they're just trading money back and they're just trading the business. They're just trading money.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just the same thing. I mean, people do that with fiat too. Like you can look at study like global markets, and like when the yen's down or like the ruble's down, people just trade money back and forth. But with the NFTs, it's really around connecting to the ability to create a digital asset. The currency is just a medium of exchange that we exchange it within.
The other currencies, the International Bank or IMF,
Yeah.
is governing what's going on.
Yeah.
And the Fed, so that it doesn't crash in one area,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So you're asking is there a regulatory institute behind any of this? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that's one question. And I guess you answered the other. It just depends on what the money's connected to for how much it's worth.
Yeah. It's literally like when you see pieces of art going for really expensive, NFTs going for really expensive, it's either just purely abstract brand, and for some reason somebody's like, ooh, that's a lot of money. Like when Beeple like about 2 years ago sold, like this is what really sent the NFT world to the mainstream. He sold it for it was like 70 million or whatever. But if you look at what was going, and it didn't start there. It was like 6 months. They kept being sold for more and more and more. But then when you look at who was buying it, they were all players in the NFT realm, and so they were all positioning themselves to validate their own currency and their own positions in the game.
They gamified it so they could win.
Yeah. And so I mean, and recently there was like some guy bought the first tweet ever for like an absurd amount of money, and now he's like trying to sell it and nobody's buying it. So I mean, that happens. You have to also be smart enough to like not jump into the speculation game. But theoretically, what is the weight behind all of the value of crypto is people using it, and it's all decentralized. So there is no centralized server, so it can't get taken down.
So if I'm going to go down this kind of rabbit hole a little bit of deeper understanding, is currently I have a business called Awakened Earth. If I created a contract of wanting to help a certain amount of communities up-level their conflict resolution and decision-making processes, I'd write a contract within my own business to achieve this goal. I would attach it to my logo and picture and create a contractual NFT. I would then take that NFT and go to my community and say, I'm raising money so I can travel and support these communities, and I'm going to be charging them for the work, so the money will be coming back, increasing the value of my business and achieving the contract at some point. That would then increase the value of the NFT as that transpired, or
Theoretically.
Okay.
I mean, because it's like, because you're just looking at, I mean, like the value of it, like how you like I was saying about the stock market, like there isn't like to say that there's like concrete of like, ooh, this is how it works. It's like, it's not quite, it's more abstract than that.
Okay.
But theoretically, if your business is becoming more successful, it's going to have more value in the world.
Okay.
And you know, with those contracts, you could even be like, all right, hey guys, you're funding me this, I can cut you in a little piece of this contract, you know, like whatever, like, you know, figure out whatever you want to do with that.
Okay. The other question I have is, so my logo, I don't have copyrights to, but if I made it a contract and created the NFT, even though it was created by somebody in my community and then given to me for free, can somebody create a copyright of my thing since I don't, or would you want to
You have the
copyright?
copyright.
By creating the NFT, you have the copyright.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I mean, yeah, technically anytime you create anything, you have the copyright. It's probably good to go through the maneuvers of the court system and all of that.
Yeah.
But technically, anytime you create something, you write anything, you have the copyright for it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I give one more skeptic's perspective?
100%.
So recently there was a bombshell in the news about digital currencies in general. Coinbase market value dropped, and they put out an advisory that said your assets stored in Coinbase digital cloud wallets are at risk if we go under. All of the value you have stored in your wallet is susceptible. And none of this is FDIC sure, because it's not what the U.S. government calls money.
Yep.
What advice do you have for they who hold values? Are there different kinds of wallets, offline wallets, that are protected from these sorts of things?
Offline wallet, if you have it in your hardware wallet, you're good. If you what's with the Coinbase thing, it's if you don't own the keys and have it in your own hardware wallet, then it's not yours.
That's the truth.
Yeah, exactly. So if you buy a bunch of stuff on Coinbase, pull it off Coinbase, have it on your own hard wallet, Coinbase goes down, you're fine. And so that's also like this Web3 and all this stuff is like, it's the next level of sovereignty. You have the ability to be in control, and if you lose your keys, it's gone. And so that's like a large part of why this is like, it's such a large part of the sovereignty movement, is because it puts all of the responsibility and sovereignty upon you as the individual. Once you click on that transaction, there's no going back. If you sent it to the wrong address and you don't know who that address is, there's no getting it back. And this is all, I mean, as the systems develop, there will be, I'm sure, more redundancy built in. We are still very early in this technology, and everybody's pushing like it's ready for mass adoption. It's not. It'll probably be ready for mass adoption in the next couple years. But if you get in early and you've got yourself even just like a solid little like community going, once it hits mainstream, all the value is just going to skyrocket.
Where does that value come from?
It's human interaction.
I mean, it's like the overall sense of, we keep talking about we're going to increase the value for everybody. Everybody's going to get more and more and more and more. But what is, all of that value has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Humans or the earth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing once you have the digital infrastructure set up, you can create more data. But the value itself that's what I'm talking about, using this to build infrastructure and businesses and structures, so that it's not focusing on the currency. The currency is just exchanging it so that we can create the resources that we have, that we need to use to interact with the physical world in this current world as its structure. So then we build community and aspects around it. So we're just using the currency as a medium of exchange to create what we want in the world. So then if the entire technology goes away, we've still developed the infrastructures and the communications and between each other, and we've just used the blockchain as a medium of exchange for us to generate the world that we want.
Yeah, so that's a beautiful ideal, and obviously you're working on
Yeah.
that. But I think most people are not.
Yeah, I would agree.
And instead, the value, so-called, being generated by these NFTs, like Bored Ape, for example.
They give you all your IP though.
Okay, whatever. But what I want to look at is the phenomenon of like crypto bros that just like generate a bunch of money for themselves through lucky investments or smart investments.
Yep.
It could happen both ways. And then they just go and like blow it on hyper capitalism.
Yep.
This is just another form of pump and dump.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
And so I totally agree. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. That's why I'm asking these hard questions about where do we generate value from? How do we recognize and align the value with actual social and cultural good instead of just
which is why that's why I'm talking about how I'm doing, like what I'm doing. Like my goal is to be a leader in creating this structure, more of this realm that is actually working on creating, is just using this as the the quote unquote invisible structures. If anybody's studied like just business, like city development, all these different things, there's these things called invisible structures, like roads and like all these, you just don't even think about it. But this is the ability that gives us the invisible structures to have into on our terms that we can utilize to create and generate the value that we need so that we can create what we want in the world. And so that's, the biggest thing I always say about NFTs and all that stuff is just forget the hype. Like, it's there, but I'm not personally even interested in it. And the technology itself is not going anywhere. And if the technology does go anywhere, it means all of our technology across the board is gone.
I would also add that, and the hype is also what's driving the ability for it to have value in our current culture, and shift the new paradigm into the new culture of right relation with technology.
Yeah, exactly. Like everything you're talking about is just people seeing it and coming at it from the same cultural narrative that led us into like the coke-fueled 1980s Wall Street. And that's just from their limited perspective, and that's just where they're at in their consciousness. And that's going to be the majority of the world currently, let's say, I don't know about majority, but a large percentage of the world, because of that's the conditioning that we were brought up within and our psychological programming from our media.
So are you specifically looking to basically create subversive art?
Oh, 100%.
And spread the awareness that you desire through the art that you generate?
Yes.
And even build into the contracts, like, hey, this is what I'm going to use money for at different levels. You know,
Yeah.
when we have these resources, it's my promise that these are the things that will be seen.
Yeah, and that's gonna be part of what the DAO comes into as, and so again a DAO, decentralized autonomous organization. So, and that's gonna be my vision with the DAO is that we create that around being a business that's not focused on maximizing financial gain, but maximizing impact in the world. And so then, and as that happens, so everybody in the DAO gets to make the decisions about where the art goes and what it is. So I'm gonna actually be taking myself out of my own leadership role in a way of within the business model that I'm creating.
Out of the executive.
Yeah, out of the executive leadership. It'll be leader full and not necessarily a head-on leader, but I'm still gonna have total creative control.
Beautiful. That's kind of like what Meow Wolf was doing.
Yeah.
So it almost seems like the driving force of this being successful with the new conscious culture is if the DAO is going to be the leading entity that we're doing a lot of these NFTs and where our platforms are going to be coming from is in right relation with creating a business model that is increasing the regenerative culture that we're looking for instead of the what is the culture, the
Extractive
culture
consumption.
that we're currently the consumer culture.
Well, we can yeah, I've been thinking about that, like, because I mean there's nothing wrong with consumption, it's just mindless consumption that's the issue.
Totally, yeah, and it's
Yeah.
Well, eventually it will overshoot resources we're running.
Yeah, maybe that's what's supposed to happen. Look at the butterfly.
So do you think there's a lot of potential with the right investments to make a lot with this blockchain technology?
Yeah, I mean I'm planning on having 7 figures within a year and a half off my art.
So you're selling art through this.
I'm getting ready to launch my platform. Yeah, my poetry, and I'll be doing videos. I'll be doing my all kinds of different stuff, tours, and so all of this is basically creating the foundation for myself to have a full-on supportive team to support my brand, just as if I had startup capital from a traditional publishing house or a record label or wherever you would go to get your startup capital as an artist. And it's about me being able to have my own voice without it being authentically wants to come out, and also supporting the fans, because if you look at art and the real value of any art brand, it's not the artists themselves, it's the fans behind the art. If there's no fans buying and purchasing and going to the shows, there's no exchange going on. And traditionally the artist was always kind of just got the shit end of the stick, but the fans didn't even get any end of the stick. Now with this, the fans and the artists themselves, and which are the two foundations for the value of all art, can be the ones that are really generating and acquiring the wealth from the art creation.
The money from the IPs going to all the executives, you can put some of it in the NFTs.
Yep, exactly.
People that buy the NFTs, which gives you the additional money to get started, they're getting value from the IP rather than the executive.
Exactly.
It's like you're making your own stocks.
Yeah.
You're making your own stocks, and you can put your whatever value into it that you want.
Yep. Exactly. And so instead of going to the traditional players for your startup capital, you're going to your fans, and you have the ability to all the contracts and everything that the industry would have the ability to do. You now have it all in the palm of your hand.
So before you end your speech today, I'm curious if you can give us some resources, whether internets, individuals, or things that have helped you step into where you're at now, so others like you can create their own, generate their own NFTs and wealth through their art and community building.
I've just kind of been like researching for like a year, so I don't have like a definitive
research document you'll share.
I haven't developed it yet. I'm going. That's what I'm saying. That's what I was getting.
The NFT of that.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Part of what as I get my ball rolling, I'm going. I did create a very brief document, but I'm gonna be putting together a document that has all of this stuff. And part of what I'm going to be doing is, as I find my success, is creating the roadmap and says like, here's what I did, take it, and just do what you want with it.
Simple starting place is just getting OpenSea, getting a digital wallet.
OpenSea and digital wallet.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Meta Wallet,
Yeah.
crypto.com.
MetaMask is what I've been using.
MetaMask, that's what I'm
Yeah.
using too.
I guess I'll end with this poem that I wrote, and this is a poem that's commenting on the current scene, but also where I would like to envision it all going. It's titled, "Would you like a cup of NFT? Tactile arts converted to digital realm. Would you care for a cup of NFT? Receipt of proof that its taste was upon tongue. Many have seen the cup, but to see the cup isn't to taste the NFT. To have its flavor upon lips, one must have it on the ledger. Careful not to get swept away in OpenSea clickbait. No, the floor is slick. At times, a rug is pulled. Artists mix own home brews. Little bird twitters bring people to the party. Community vibes set a scene for growing. It's 2022. This party barely has the lights turned on. Everyone aping like they're card counting Vegas. Gotta keep eye on the prize. An art revolution where fans sip NFT with the potion's master. If it's a taste the people like, everyone with receipt to that brewmaster's party shall prosper upon creativity's tap." Yeah.
OpenSea for the week.
Yeah. And be very careful. There are a lot of people that are trying to take advantage of people, and like they call a rug pull. They'll create a project and be like, hype it up all over Twitter, and they have a bunch of people buy in, and then as soon as all the money's in, they just pull it all out and take advantage of people.
Would you
So-
give us your name, website, and any information of finding more of what you're creating in the world?
For myself, dankphartcreative.com and all social media, dankphart. Yeah.
Creative, sorry.
Yeah, dankphartcreative.com. Yeah. And this is how we build new art future not commodification, celebration.
Radio station or something?
What's up?